morning. How are we doing out there? Good morning. I'm going to invite you to stand up and sing Sweetly Broken. Here's the first song. To the cross I look, and to the cross I cling. Of its suffering I do drink, of its work I do sing. For on it my Savior, both bruised and crushed, showed that God is love and God is just. At the cross you beckon me, draw me gently to my knees, and I am so lost for words, so lost in love. I'm sweetly broken, wholly surrendered. What a priceless gift, undeserved life have I been given through Christ crucified. You called me out of death, you called me into life. I was under your wrath. Now through the cross I'm reconciled. At the cross you beckon me, draw me gently to my knees, and I am so lost for words, so lost in love. I'm sweetly broken, only surrendered. At the cross you beckon me, draw me gently to my knees, and I am so lost for words, so lost in love. I'm sweetly broken, only surrendered. And off the cross I must confess, how wondrous your redeeming love, and how great is your faithfulness. At the cross you beckon me, draw me gently to my knees, and I am so lost for words, so lost in love. I'm sweetly broken, only surrendered. At the cross you beckon me, draw me gently to my knees, and I am so lost for words, so lost in love. I'm sweetly broken, only surrendered. And it's higher than the mountains that I face, and is stronger than the power of the grave. A constant in the trial, the change. One thing remains. Your love never fails and never gives up, never runs out on me. Your love never fails and never gives up, never runs out on me. Your love never fails and never gives up, never runs out on me. Your love. And on and on and on and on it goes. And it overwhelms and satisfies my soul. And I'll never ever have to be afraid. One thing remains. One thing remains. Your love never fails and never gives up, never runs out on me. Your love never fails and never gives up, never runs out on me. Yeah, your love never fails and never gives up, never runs out on me. Your love. In death, in life, I'm confident and covered by the power of your great love. My debt is paid. There is nothing that can separate my heart from your great love. As your love never fails and never gives up, it never runs out on me. Your love never fails and never gives up, it never runs out on me. Yeah, your love never fails and never gives up, it never runs out on me. Your love. And on and on and on and on it goes, as it overwhelms and satisfies my soul. And I'll never ever have to be afraid. Yeah, one thing remains. Yeah, one thing remains. Your love never fails and never gives up, it never runs out on me. Your love never fails and never gives up, it never runs out on me. Yeah, your love never fails and never gives up, it never runs out on me. Your love. In death, in life, I'm confident and covered by the power of your great love. My debt is paid. There is nothing that can separate my heart from your great love. 'Cause your love never fails and never gives up, it never runs out on me. Your love never fails and never gives up, it never runs out on me. Yeah, your love never fails and never gives up, it never runs out on me. Your love, your love, your love. All right. I believe children are dismissed, I think. Correct? There we go. All right, this flag fell down. That's why I didn't see it. There we go. All right. Perfect. Just want to make sure. 1,000 generations falling down in worship, sing the song of ages to the Lamb. And all who've gone before us, and all who will believe, will sing the song of ages to the Lamb. Your name is the highest, your name is the greatest, your name stands above them all. All thrones, dominions, all power, position, your name stands above them all. And the angels cry, oh, holy. All creation cries, oh, holy. You are lifted high, oh, holy, holy forever. If you've been forgiven, and if you've been redeemed, sing the song forever to the Lamb. And if you walk in freedom, and if you bear his name, they'll sing the song forever to the Lamb. We'll sing the song forever and amen. And the angels cry, oh, holy. All creation cries, oh, holy. You are lifted high, oh, holy, holy forever. Your name is highest, your name is the greatest, your name stands above them all. All thrones, dominions, all powers, positions, your name stands above them all. Your name is the highest, your name is the greatest, your name stands above them all. All thrones and dominions, all power, position, your name stands above them all. The angels cry, oh, holy. All creation cries, oh, holy. You are lifted high, oh, holy, holy forever. Hear your people sing, oh, holy, to the King of Kings. Oh, holy, you will always be. Oh, holy, holy forever. You will always be. Oh, holy, holy forever. Amen. I believe you may be seated.
Good morning. I want to welcome those of you who are watching online, our Richland Center family, and then those of you who are here in Dodgeville. We appreciate you being here. We really think it's a privilege that you would worship with us, take time out of your busy schedule to be here. Before we begin the message, we thought it appropriate to celebrate our veterans. It is Veterans weekend with Veterans Day coming up. And I've asked Roger and Colleen Wilson, attenders at Hidden Valley, longtime attenders at Hidden Valley. I don't think there's a role that Roger has not fulfilled over the years at Hidden Valley. But they are veterans, and we just asked them to kind of come and share their story briefly with us.
Good morning. Thank you, Scott, for giving us this opportunity to share. And this is my wife, Colleen, as Scott introduced us. The uniqueness, there it is. So look at those two crazy kids up there, right? We being as a couple, serving together, I think adds a new layer. There's a lot of couples out there that have served. I know that. And at the time that we were in, the uniqueness of both of us being deployable added a stress to our lives. But I think that helped create a stronger bond in our marriage and our just being able that we knew we were serving for a higher purpose. The main goal of the military, and of course, is to serve and protect our country. And we had a part of that. So just want to let Colleen share a few words for you.
Hi. I kind of wanted to give you a little bit of background. When I was in high school in 4-H, we took a trip to Washington, D.C., and I was a little country girl, had never been around military at all in my entire life. And we went to the Arlington Cemetery. I don't know if any of you have been there. And we also saw the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. And those two things hit me so hard. Just really started giving me that love for my country that I never had had before. And so I got out of high school and wandered around, didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I decided to join the Air Force Reserve. And I went through all my training, came back, realized I still had no idea what I wanted to do. So I decided to go active duty because I enjoyed while I was in doing all my training. And ended up spending 10 years in the Air Force, having our 3 daughters. And yes, we were both active duty during the Persian Gulf situation the first time around. We had our 1 daughter at that time, Ashley. And it was terrifying, I'm not going to lie. But we made it through. And even back then, when we weren't real close with the Lord, He watched over us, protected us, kept both of us home. Roger was ready to get on a plane any day. I never knew if he was going to come home that day. He always had his bag in his trunk, and he could leave that day when he went to work. But we made it through, and it gives you a much, much greater appreciation for all of our soldiers. And it's hard to have that unless you've lived it. It's easy to take advantage of. Because you just don't think about it. You just live your daily life and enjoy everything we have. But I just wanted to kind of give you a different perspective. There are a lot of soldiers that are sacrificing a lot every day. Please don't forget to pray for them daily in every way, and their families, because when you're in the military, your entire family's in the military. One quick little side note, during the Persian Gulf situation, I worked in the hospital, and we had a lady that had just come back from maternity leave. Her baby was 8 weeks old. She was shipped out. She worked in the ER. She was shipped out for about 9 months and had to leave her baby. So she came back, and her baby was, she had missed a lot. And I will never forget her of the sacrifice that she gave, and that's just one tiny little story. So I just ask you all to continue to always pray for our country, always pray for our active duty, and all the veterans that have suffered, injuries, psychologically. There's a lot of a lot that goes to it. So that's my story. Thank you.
I'll share a little bit of mine. Like her, she kind of had a deep feeling to join the military. Not all of us did. I think at the time when I joined, it was peacetime, and I saw a way through for GI Bill. I was going to pay for my college. But I say that because once you actually serve and you get into it was like a daily job, but knowing at any time that you could go, that instills a different piece of you inside of you that you maybe not felt unless you experienced it. And so saying that, the experience carries and stays with you your entire life. We love to talk to vets. We love to hear their stories. And I suggest if you find one, ask them about it. You'll learn some interesting stuff and sometimes some heartbreaking stuff, but listen to them. And mine's not so crazy. I got out a little bit sooner than her because of the kid situation. It was easier for me when my enlistment came up. I got out so that I could be there for the kids. But at the same time, to this day, we served late 80s, early 90s, and to this day, it's 2024, and where I work in Middleton, I can hear the jets fly across for the F-35s from Madison, and I will stop what I'm doing and run outside to the dock to see if I could see them, because I love listening to them, because I was a jet engine mechanic. That's what I did. And so knowing that I had a little piece of putting those aircraft in the air, especially during Persian Gulf, knowing they were protecting our other guys and our other military on the ground, that's an awesome feeling. So, again, thank you for sharing, or letting us share. Sorry.
So if you're watching online, if you're in Richland Center, and if you're here, if you're a veteran, would you just please stand up so we can just thank you for what you've done? So real quick. So we do want to encourage you as we kind of transition here, but we do want to encourage you, if you're here in Dodgeville, to go ahead and take a look at your information card, that connection card that you have there. Kind of tells you where we're at in terms of giving. We want to thank you for your giving, your generosity, your sacrificial giving over the past month. The reality is God takes your gifts and he uses them in ways that we never, expect. We want to be really good stewards with it, but your giving allows God to take your gifts and people and volunteers to change lives. So thanks for being a part of that. If you consider Hidden Valley your home, we would encourage you to consider giving on a regular basis. Thanks for being a part of that. Thanks for what you do. Thanks for what you allow us to do and the way you encourage people. So today is kind of a transition. Most of you know that leading up to Tuesday's election, we did this series called The Separation of Church and Hate. And then we're going to transition into a new series. And I kind of like this title. And I actually came up with this one. But it's called Clean Up on Aisle Me. And it's this idea, we've just gone through a fairly divisive time in our country. And for some of us, and I've talked to some of you, it's been divisive in your family. There's several of you. One kid is on this side and one child's on this side. And sometimes it's one spouse and one, and it's been divisive at work and it's been difficult. And so we just want to kind of pause, kind of collect ourselves. And some of us, it's not the election, Maybe we've got some bad news at work. Maybe we got some bad news from the doctor. Maybe, for some of us, the holiday season is not all Merry, Merry Christmas for some of us. It's hard. Christmas, just so you know, for my family this year is going to be difficult because of a loss of a family member earlier this year. So we're just going to take, a couple of weeks here and just kind of clean up on aisle me. And when I'm a little nervous, and you maybe do this too, and when life isn't exactly what I want it to be, you know what I do? I grab a cup of coffee. And I've been drinking a lot of coffee lately. And here's something kind of interesting that happened Monday morning, and it kind of made me laugh. It's God's sense of timing. My wife went into surgery, and she was literally the first person on the docket Monday morning. So we had to get up at 3 o'clock, and we had to head to Madison, and, they wheeled her out. And so I found the nearest cafe, and I ordered a cup of coffee, and I opened up my email. And this was the email I saw. One of you in this room sent me an email, said, just want to let you know I'm sitting here drinking coffee, praying for you. But we do that, right? When life is a little stressful, and maybe it's not coffee for you, maybe it's tea, maybe it's hot chocolate, maybe it's something else, but let's not talk about that. But life's hard, and I just want to grab a cup of coffee. And sometimes coffee helps. Sometimes we need more than just a mug. But we're going to look at some mugs today. Some coffee mugs that we could do more than drink out of. We could actually learn something from these. And we're going to start with a coffee mug that you may or may not have. In God we trust. And it's interesting. I would, in prep for this message, I kind of looked at that phrase, and most of you know that if you pull out your coins in your pocket right now, or you pull out a bill from your wallet, somewhere on those items, every single one of them, it says, in God we trust. That phrase was added to our coins in 1955. It was added to bills in 1957. And here's something that I didn't realize. There's still coins floating around and bills floating around that don't have those words on them. And no, don't check your coins now. But, just take a look, because that's what I did. I kind of I wonder. It's getting less and less, obviously, but there's still coins, there's still dollar bills that do not have the phrase, in God we trust. It's an interesting saying, right? In God we trust. It's a great national motto. I mean, it's awesome that we live in a country that's the motto, in God we trust. But I wonder, is it true? And I'm not talking so much as a nation, but I'm talking as an individual. Do we really trust God? Especially, when life is sideways, when it's difficult. For some of us, based on the election results, do we really trust God? It's interesting. I think it's easier to believe in God, right? A lot of people say they believe in God. The numbers are staggering. Something like over 90% of Americans say, yeah, I believe in God. The Bible actually says this in James 2:19. This is one of those verses you're like, wow. You believe that God is one, you do well. Even the demons believe and shudder. I mean, just think about that. Demons, they probably wouldn't admit it if we could invite one on the stage and talk to him. Actually, I'd leave the stage if one walked up here. But demons believe in God. I think trust is harder. Some of us, we might say, yeah, I love God. I really love, he's been so good to me. I have this, and this is going well, and this is happening, and this, and life, it's great. My kids are, I love God, especially when things are smooth. I think it's easier to say, I love God, than to actually trust God. And here's something I need to tell you. I really feel the need to say this. Most of you know I work on the messages, weeks in advance. And I was intentional. I worked on this message. I knew what passage we were going to look at. I knew some of the themes and things that we were going to look at over a month and a half ago. Because this message is not meant to celebrate some of the results on Tuesday. This message is not meant to console you if the results were not what you expected. We're not asking, should we trust God as a nation? We're looking at, it's much more personal than that. Do I trust God, not when the election goes the way or doesn't go the way I want, but do I trust God when I'm struggling at work? Do I trust God when things between my spouse and I are not good? Do I trust God when there's medical issues, when there's financial? Do I trust God for my kids? And that's really the question that we're going to ask. Do I trust God? Not just every 4 years, a few days after an election, but really, do I trust God? Not to make it a motto, but a personal conviction. The goal today is really simple. And it's a goal that I have for myself. It's a goal that I have for you. It's the goal that I have for you watching. It's to answer that question. In other words, the goal is this. It's not so much in God we trust question, but in God we trust exclamation point. Yeah, I do. I really do trust God. I trust him when things are not going the way I thought they should, when things are a little bit sideways, when things are a little bit stressful, when there's relationships that are broken, when there's healing that has to take place. Do I really trust God? And sometimes we just tell each other, just trust more. It's your lack of, it's your fault. If you would just trust more. And that doesn't help anybody. Because to just say trust more, it doesn't make me trust more. It just irritates me more. So here's what we're going to do is we're going to look at who this God is that tells us we can trust him. It's not about trusting more. It's about really looking, who is this God? And why? Why could I trust him? And we're going to do that with what I like to call coffee mug verses. You know, we're going to look at some verses in the Bible that have been put on coffee mugs. I do not have any mugs that have a Bible verse. This mug actually mocks Bible verses because this is what this mug says, and I love it. I can do all things through a verse taken out of context. But we're going to look at coffee mug verses. And for $15.99, you can go to Amazon and you can order any one of these cups. And if you like having Bible verses on a coffee mug, that's awesome. But it's the God who's on the coffee mug that's probably a little bit more important. But before we look at this passage, this one that I knew we were going to look at several weeks ago, let me give you the context. Because there's a lot of coffee mug verses that come out of this passage. But I promise you that the first people who heard these verses, they were not thinking, you know, that would make a great coffee mug. It was way more important, the God, than the coffee mug. So let me give you the context. In 701 BC, there was an incredibly evil army from a place called Assyria. And Assyrians, they had taken the art of war and torture to a level beyond anything that you and I understand. You know, over the past several weeks, every day you would walk out to your mailbox and you would get 473 political flyers from all these candidates. You know what the Assyrians would do? Seriously, this is what they did. They would surround a city, and for weeks, sometimes months before they actually invaded, they would make scrolls and rock images of what they were going to do to you when they entered. They would give vivid images of what they were going to do to the men, the women, and the children. And quite honestly, some of those images are so vile, I would never show you what they were. But day after day, they would just kind of like throw those things over the wall to a city that they were about to invade. This is going to happen to you. Because it wasn't enough in their mind to win, they wanted to demoralize. And in case you wonder, did they carry through? Were they all talk? No, they were more than talk. They carried through. Sometimes they actually did worse than what they said they were going to do. You know, in fact, they came up with a form of torture and murder that some of us are familiar with. It was the Assyrians that came up with something called crucifixion. And this tablet, it's hard to see, but this is the images that they, it's the image of crucifixion, impaling somebody against a wall. And they would surround a city, and for days and weeks and months, they would tell you what they were going to do to you before they did it. And it came in history that the Assyrians had surrounded the city of Jerusalem. And I've never been in a city that was being attacked. I know we've had our 9/11, and our family, we lived in New Jersey, and we lived close enough to New York, we could see the smoke. But I never once felt that my wife and my kids were in danger. But the Assyrians had surrounded Jerusalem, and there were 185,000 of them. 185,000 sadistic soldiers bent on doing unspeakable evil. And I wonder what they would have said if we could have got in Jerusalem and asked them this question: do you trust God? I think if I'd been there, I think my answer would have been pretty obvious. No. But here's what God did. And it's something that we have, 2,700 years later. He gave them something called Psalm 46. And it's a story, Psalm 46, there's a lot of weighty, dark things happening behind this psalm. But it's also a psalm where there's a whole lot of coffee mugs that are being sold. For example, Psalm 46:1, you can buy that coffee mug. And if you're not a coffee drinker, here's the verse. God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. It's interesting, depending on your transition or your translation, it says God is our refuge, or it says God is our shelter. And this word, it actually combines both, because you know what a refuge is, right? A refuge is a place that you run when you don't feel safe. And a shelter is a place that once you get there, you're safe. And that's what God is. He's both those things. And I just want you to think about it, because I do this too, and you do it, and we all do it. When life is bleak and when it's sideways and we didn't get the news that we wanted to and things aren't going well, we all run somewhere. For those of you, I found out several days ago that both my wife and my daughter had to have surgery. I did run here. I've drank way too much coffee this week. But we all run somewhere. And sometimes it's not a safe place that we run. You ever made a bad choice because you ran the wrong way when life was difficult? This is what God says to Jerusalem, surrounded by 185,000 Assyrians, and he says to you and I, I'm safe. I'm safe even if you're the one who caused your problems. I'm safe. You can run to me. And at the end of that verse, it says, and it's this great phrase, he's an ever-present help. He's ever-present. You know, the interesting thing, and it happens to all of us, and it happened to me, you know, a week and a half or so ago. Life hits us and it surprises us. We kind of scratch our heads and we wonder why, and we don't know what's going to happen next. You know what's never happened to God? This has never happened to God. God's never gone, didn't see that one coming. I expected better. I expected good news. That's never happened with God because he's ever present. He's ever ready. And it's a great two words, and it's translated different ways, but here's your Hebrew lesson for the day. God is literally Nimsa Ma'od. And that word Nimsa, it means that God is always ready. He's right there. He's never caught off guard. And that word Ma'od, it means very or always. So what that means for you and I is this God that says you can trust me, he's always there. He's always ready. He's never been perplexed. He's never scratched his head. I didn't see that coming. I don't know what to do. So here's what that first coffee mug says about who God is. God is ready and able and willing. And really, because of that, we should say God is very ready. He's very able, and he's very willing. That's the one you can run to. The Assyrians didn't have coffee mugs. They just had a God who was able, ready, and willing. But you know what else? As you continue reading through this psalm, there is another coffee mug that you could buy. It's from Psalm 46:5. You could buy this coffee mug. And actually, that's not the whole verse because the whole verse wouldn't fit nicely on a coffee mug. But here's Psalm 46:5. God is within her. She will not fall. God will help her at the break of day. And you wonder, who's the she? What woman are we talking about? The she here is Jerusalem, that city that was surrounded by 185,000 merciless killers. The she is Jerusalem. Jerusalem is not going to fall. Because God is going to help her when? At the break of day. You know, when life gets sideways and when it doesn't go the way we thought, it can feel dark, right? It feels like it's dark, and you're waiting and you're wondering, and it's dark and it's hard, and you can't see what's going to happen next. You know when God shows up? He always shows up at the break of day. He always brings day with him. And if you combine that whole idea that there's a God who's always ready, always available, always willing, he's always going to show up at the break of day. You know what these verses tell us? God is always what we need and when we need him. He's always what we need, but he's always when we need him too. You ever feel like God shows up too late? If he just knew that, if he had done it earlier, if he'd shown up then, this wouldn't have happened. If God had done this at this point, then, I mean, I think I know better about time than God does. And you know what happens? We get really anxious when God doesn't do stuff according to our timeline. We get really nervous, and it kind of spirals, and it gets weird. You know, it kind of goes something like this, and I've seen it happen over these past few days. We look at it, we say, oh my goodness, the election turned out this way. And I was told that no matter who the candidate is, that the middle class is going to no longer exist. I'm going to pay more taxes, and I'm not going to be able to pay for my kid's new cell phone. And oh my goodness, my kid's going to have to use a flip phone. And then they're going to date somebody who carries a flip phone, and they're going to get married, and they're going to have kids, and the kids are going to have a dumb phone. How am I going to pay for my grandkid's smartphone? And we do that with worry, don't we? It gets weird. And it kind of spirals out of control. You know, God always shows up at the right time, even if I don't feel it. God always shows up at the right time. You know, there's this great verse as we kind of enter the Christmas season that tells us a whole lot about Christmas and God's timing. It's found in Galatians 4:4. But when the right time came, God sent his son. He knows what he's doing, and he knows when to do it. It's so easy when life is difficult and it's hard to say, this is a bad time. Well, God knows what time it is. And day's coming. He's got that. You know, the next set of verses, I'm sorry, but I couldn't find a mug for you, except for this one. And this one, you know, once again, it's mostly because it's a little too long to put on in a mug, but it's kind of scary, and I don't know if I'd want to drink coffee out of this mug because here's the verse. It's Psalm 46, actually it's verses 6 and 7, but listen to these verses. Listen to what was written to these people who were surrounded and to you and me. The nations are in chaos, and their kingdoms crumble. God's voice thunders, and the earth melts. The Lord of heaven's armies is here among us. You know, sometimes you and I may question, I wonder if God even knows what's going on with me. I mean, I'm just a piddly little small nothing. Does God really know? I mean, he's got bigger things to do. Does he even notice? I wonder does he even notice me? Come on, I'm not that important. I mean, look at this verse. It says this about God. If God's voice speaks, the earth would melt. But then he says, but he's with us. The God whose voice could melt the earth, he's with us. You know what that tells us? God is big enough to oversee the world and close enough to care. God is big enough to oversee the world because it would melt if he said melt, but he's close enough to care. You know, sometimes when life is sideways and when you're hurting and when it's hard and when you don't know what's next, you might not say this out loud, but you're like, hey, God, could you stop watching Netflix and help me? He's there. You know, a 185,000 member army was no match for God. And there's never been an empire, there's never been a power, there's never been a movement that's too big for God. But you know what else is true about God? He knows that most of you have between 90,000 and 150,000 hairs on your head. Although when I look at some of you, the number is much smaller than that. Because this is what it says in Matthew 10:30. Even the hairs of your head are all numbered. God is big enough that he deals with all the international affairs. But he's also close enough to help with your individual affairs. He's got this. He's not too busy. You're not too small. He's not so concerned about the big picture over here that he doesn't care about your small picture here. You can trust God because he's always ready. He's always available. He's always willing. He's got this incredible sense of timing. He's big enough, but he's also close enough. And honestly, this next one, I don't like it. I know pastors are supposed to like the whole Bible. I don't like this next one. So here's the coffee mug. And I just want you to know, as you're considering very strongly what you're going to buy me for Christmas, don't buy that mug for me. It might accidentally fall on the ground. Because here's the verse, and I confess I'm not good at this one. Psalm 46:10 says this: "Be still and know that I am God." I don't like to be still. I do not like to be still. In fact, just, some of you have probably figured this out about me. The only time of the week that I am still? It's for about 40 minutes on a Sunday morning because the people who operate the camera say I can't walk to either side. So I'm going to do something that's going to feel really good. I'll never do that again. Oh, I'm lying. I felt so good. I don't like being still. I would prefer to try to fix it. I want to make it better. I want to know what I'm supposed to do to get out of this problem. I'm such a goofball. This week, early on Monday or Tuesday, I don't remember, because the days, Randy, our daughter, she's got this world-famous neurologist who's looking at her back, and he shared with us what the plan was. And the plan is that we have to wait for like a week and a half for our daughter to have her surgery because they want to build the back up and they want to take care of it. And they're going to do this, physical therapy, and it's going to be painful, it's going to hurt, but it's going to be good for her. And the whole time, you know what I'm thinking? The guy who's not a neurologist? This is what I'm thinking. I got a better plan. Let's do the surgery now. Let's get her let's take care of this. Thankfully, I wasn't dumb enough to express that to him. But when life is hard, we want to fix it. I don't want my daughter to hurt. I want to fix it. Let's do it today. Go wash your hands, dude. And we do that with God sometimes. I can take care of it, God. Let me take care of it. Let me do something. My middle daughter, Christy, she has said this on many occasions. She has said these words to me: "Dad, chillax." Which, for those of you who don't know, is a combination of chill and relax. Dad, chillax. You know what that phrase, "be still," it means? It really means just relax. Let go. Give yourself a little slack. Don't be so hard on yourself. Don't think that you have to it means chillax. So you know what God really says in this verse? And this is hard for me, and I do not do it very well. And that's why I don't want this coffee mug. But this is what God says. When life is difficult, when it's hard, when you're surrounded by 185,000 killers, God says this: be still and chillax. I don't do that one very well. And I am going to run across this stage again. That was so much fun. So who's the God who says we can trust him? This is what he's like. It's not a matter of you just trust more. This is who you can trust. The one who's always there. He's never been surprised with your situation. He's never scratched his head and said, I don't know how to help you. I'm not sure we can do anything. His sense of timing is impeccable. It's perfect. He knows the best time. He's really, really big. He's really, really powerful, and he's this close to you. And he wants you to be still. You can't fix everything. Are there times where you do have to? Of course there's times you have to do stuff, but you can't fix it all. And you can't even tell the neurologist what they should do. You can't fix it. So you want to know what happened in this after Psalm 46 was written? Because the Bible tells us what happened. It tells us in 2 Kings 19 and 2 Chronicles 32, and we're not going to read the whole passages. But this, what happened is this king, the king in Jerusalem, his name was Hezekiah. He got one of those, flyers, if you will, saying what the Assyrians were going to do to his people, to the men, the women, the children. And he took it to the temple before God, and he put it down before God, and he prayed to God. And this is what happened in 2 Kings 19:35. And that night, the angel of the Lord went out and struck down 185,000 in the camp of the Assyrians. Just like that. It doesn't mean that in everything, in all of our situations when life is done, that God's going to take care of it just like that. But he could if he wanted to. And the amazing thing is, in Assyrian records that archaeologists have dug up, they tell this story about a time when they had a 185,000 member army, and it just disappeared. In God, I trust is hard. It's hard for some of you because of the election. It's hard for some of you because of medical news. It's hard for some of you because of job, because of your marriage, because of your kids, because of the holidays coming up. But you can trust a God who's always there. He's always ready. He's always willing. He's got this incredible sense of timing. And you got to do something that's really hard, and I'm not very good at it. Chillax. Be still. And if you've never done this, you start with belief. For those of you who are maybe new to Christianity, you're not at the point that you always trust God. I'm not at that point, but you start with belief. Romans 10:9 says it this way: if we confess with our mouth that Jesus is Lord, and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to have this supreme level of trust. You start with believe, and over time, trust grows. It's a work in progress for all of us. Let's pray. God, I thank you that you are worthy of trust, and you just don't tell us to do it. You actually tell us why we can trust you. And God, I pray if there's people who are watching or people who are present who've never simply said, I believe that Jesus died for me. Trust is still a work in progress for all of us. But I believe. So I pray that the people would pray that today. Thank you that you are a God who's worthy of incredible trust. In Jesus' name, amen. So we got some announcements for you before we go. Right now we're in the process. We've done this for several years as a church. If you walk out, there's a Christmas tree, and we're giving those. There's envelopes, and those envelopes represent families or individuals. We put together Christmas baskets for them. And you can do this one of two ways. You can take an envelope and please write down that you took envelope 7 or whatever number it is. And then when you open it up, you go buy those items and bring them back here. Or if you don't do purchasing of items like that, you can give money, and we have people who are willing to buy them. But it's just a great way for us to serve. I believe it's 115 families in our community this Christmas season. When you walked in this morning, you smelled pancakes and sausage, which is great, and you're nervous because it was middle schoolers and high schoolers who were cooking it. Trust me, they do a really good job. So we invite you afterwards to go down the hall, have pancake breakfast, stay after, play some bingo, get to know some people. and just enjoy yourself for a little while. If you would fill out your connection card, if you have a prayer request, tell us who you are. If it's your first, second, third time visiting, we'd like to know that. We have a group of people who actually pray for those requests. That's part of what they do to serve you. So people will notice when you put a prayer request down there. I'll be down front here. I'd love to meet you, talk with you. I'll show you my coffee mug, too, if you really want to see it. Thanks for joining us. Have a fantastic week.